When my husband Song Xuanzhou went north, he once disguised himself as a down-and-out scholar and married another. The woman, with gentle eyes and brows, showed up at our door with a child. I thought she was there to seek justice for herself. But I didn't expect that upon seeing our immense wealth, she was here to kick me out. Madam, I am Song Lang's wife, wedded through proper ceremony. Although you and he were matched by your parents, there is no affection between you. If this goes on, it is torture for both of you. Why not let go and let each other find happiness? I sipped my tea and sighed. Very well, I'll have him come out right now and take you home. The woman holding her child was delighted to hear this. Perhaps not expecting it to be so simple, she stood there stunned and didn't react for a long time. Nianian, did you hear that? She gently tapped the baby's forehead, whispering, from now on, Nianian won't have to squeeze into a thatched hut with mommy anymore. From now on, we'll live in a mansion, and you'll be a young lady. She called it whispering, but in fact, the 4 or 5 people in the hall, myself included, heard it loud and clear. After cooing to her swaddled child, when the woman looked up at me, she inexplicably had more confidence, and even her form of address changed. Miss, I didn't expect you to be such a reasonable woman. I originally thought you'd be like the venomous wives from the storybooks and give me and my daughter a very hard time. Since you're willing to give up Song Lang, I'll remember your kindness. In a little while, I'll have Song Lang prepare some extra travel money for you. If you want to remarry, I can introduce you to the butcher from my hometown. He is skilled and makes money fast. As she spoke, she pursed her lips and smiled a little shyly. Although he can't compare to Master Song in terms of wealth, isn't life about who you spend it with? Once you two develop feelings for each other, life will be sweet regardless of poverty or wealth. Just like me and Master Song. My brow twitched. I just felt that the person in front of me was truly too thick-skinned. I don't know where she heard that Song Xuanzhou was wealthy. He was the husband I took in as a live-in son-in-law just because I was after his looks. His original self was just a dirt-poor scholar. Some time ago, I heard the maids privately gossiping that he was improper, and I was just thinking of finding evidence to kick him out, but I didn't expect the evidence to come knocking on my door by itself. Watching her gleefully take the chance to sit down in the chair, I found it quite amusing. So for the time being, I didn't have the heart to expose this fact. After all, once Song Xuanzhou gets here, everything will become clear. In the future, this hall needs to have more plants. Plants nurture wealth, so the family can prosper for a long time. Shen Qingqing touched the new Nanmu wood chair I had made and continued. This chair is no good. When I officially marry in, I'll definitely have Song Lang replace all of these with redwood ones. As she spoke, it was as if she had already started dreaming, and the surrounding servants who heard this all silently turned their heads away to laugh, for fear that they might accidentally laugh out loud and disturb the lady of the house dream of the person before them. Before long, Song Xuanzhou arrived, waving a folding fan in his hand. If it weren't for his face turning visibly paler upon seeing Shen Qingqing, he would have actually looked a bit like a graceful young master. He put on a hypocritical act, stiffly averting his gaze from Shen Qingqing. Then he walked straight over to my side. Smiling sweetly, I took his arm. Husband, this young lady came to our door with a child, saying you two once pledged your love to each other. Honestly, if you found a sweetheart out there, you should have told me. If you had told me, the young lady surely wouldn't have had to suffer so much. If you brought them home, it is not like I would mistreat them, would I? The moment I finished speaking, Shen Qingqing eagerly rushed forward. Song Lang, it really is you. Back then, at the matchmaker god's temple, we poured our hearts out and pledged our lives to each other, and then we had Nian. Look, she looks like you, and like me too. She'll definitely be a beauty when she grows up. She held up her daughter, moving her closer for Song Xuanzhou to see. A trace of hesitation flickered across Song Xuanzhou's face. Seeing this, I continued. In the 2 years since we've been married, I haven't been able to conceive, and I truly feel I've let you down. Your child is my child, and I will surely treat her as my own. As I spoke, I looked at the child, revealing a hint of envy. Perhaps it was my sincere eyes that moved him. He let out a long sigh of relief and squeezed my hand back. My lady, it was I who was narrow-minded. Last time I went up north, Ching Ching and I fell in love at first sight. We bowed to heaven and earth at the matchmaker God's temple, and became husband and wife. Later, when I was returning home, I missed my wife so much that I actually forgot for a moment to bring her back with me. To make my wife worry for me is truly your husband's fault. Since she has found her way here, from now on, we are one family. As he spoke, he was about to take my hand and Shen Qingqing's hand and hold them together. I wasn't ready yet, but Shen Qingqing was the first to make a fuss. She abruptly pulled her hand back and rebuked sharply. To think I just thought you were different, so this was your plan all along. You want to use this compassionate facade to coax Song Lang into taking me as a concubine, don't you? Let me tell you, I am the daughter of a good family, and I would rather die than be a concubine or a servant. And my daughter will not call another woman mother. As she spoke, she hugged the swaddled infant in her arms. The child, perhaps feeling uncomfortable, startled awake from a deep sleep and began to cry out loud. As the child cried, Shen Qingqing also began to shed tears along with the child. Song Lang, that winter, you once said you would be devoted to me, and that you would only have me in your heart and eyes. Now are you just going to stand by and watch as your wife forces me to be a concubine, and let our child call her mother? I won't do as you wish. Even if I have to bash my head in and die right here, I will not be a concubine. Song Xuanzhou opened his mouth as if to speak, but perhaps he really couldn't find any words of comfort, or perhaps he didn't know how to comfort her. Opening and closing his mouth several times, he looked a bit like a toad panting heavily. After a long while, he finally spoke, but only managed to say dry, "Ching, how could I ever treat you like this?" Then he turned his gaze to me, as if he wanted me to speak for him. I found it amusing and silently watched them put on a show. Shen Qingqing must have been truly aggrieved, rushing towards a pillar while holding the child. Just as I thought she was a woman of integrity, and was about to have someone stop her, she had already stopped in front of the pillar herself, without even a hint of embarrassment. She looked at me defiantly, stubbornly wiping her tears. If I were to die, wouldn't that be just what you want? You wish, Song Lang. Divorce her. I refuse to share a husband with such a vicious woman. Or, if she requests to be demoted to a concubine, I can reluctantly agree to live under the same roof with such a person. Otherwise, you'll never see me or the child again. Song Xuanzhou chided her helplessly, but there seemed to be no real blame in his tone. He just turned his head and said to me, "Wife, Qingqing is insensible, she really can't be a concubine. How about I take her outside? Away from the manor? How does that sound?" I nodded in understanding. All right. Hearing this, Song Xuanzhou couldn't hide the joy on his face. At this point, Shen Qingqing had already found a chair and sat down again. Song Xuanzhou didn't deliberately lower his voice just now, and she heard it too. But she acted as if she didn't understand the hidden meaning in Song Xuanzhou's words, as smug as a hen that had won a battle. It was even written all over her face. See, Song Lang is on my side. Watching her left me speechless. Adding to that the child's crying and wailing. It was so annoying that my desire to mess with them lessened quite a bit. The smile on my face faded a little. I summoned a maidservant and instructed, "Go pack up young Master Song's things, and send them to the government office for filing along with the official documents." Song Xuanzhou let out a breath. "Madam, it is just buying a house. There is no need to make such a big deal and go to the authorities. It is not good for your reputation or mine, so just handle it as you see fit. The house doesn't need to be big. A 3-courtyard, 4 section 1 will do. A dozen or so servants will be enough. Any more might be too noisy and disturb the child's peace." Before Song Xuanzhou could finish speaking, Shen Qingqing eagerly interrupted. "Husband, I think this place is just fine. So why buy another house? You're the head of the family. There is no need to be so meek and humble with a woman. It is a disgrace to you." As she spoke, she took on a scolding tone. "Madam, I'm calling you madam out of courtesy. Don't think you're actually the mistress of this mansion. You just married into this family, everything in this mansion, top to bottom, belongs to my husband. Don't think that by requesting to be demoted to an inconspicuous concubine, it'll make you seem generous and that you'll be able to live freely. During New Year's and holidays, you still have to pay respects to me. The main wife, understand? For a moment, I kind of suspected that there was something wrong with Shen Qingqing's brain. After calming down the urge to laugh out loud, I finally spoke calmly. Miss Shen, have you perhaps misunderstood? Shen Qingqing frowned and I continued. Everything you see now, as far as the eye can see, is all my Li Mingju's private property. It has absolutely nothing to do with your darling Song. Even the robe he is wearing right now was newly made by people I sent 3 months ago. I don't know if you're truly stupid or just playing dumb. He is a live-in son-in-law. He can't make me his concubine. He just wants you to be a kept mistress on the outside with no official status, to play with whenever he feels like it. This is way more vicious than being a concubine. And this can be considered loving you? I scoffed. A servant also brought over the documents I had prepared beforehand. That tattered bag Song Xuanzhou had when he first entered my Li family was thrown into his arms. Song Xuanzhou, with a brain like yours, you still think you can take the imperial examinations, eating from my bowl while eyeing the pot. Do you think you're worthy of having me raise your woman and child for you? Take a good look. These are the divorce papers. All this time, you ate my food, used my things, and wore my clothes. Yet you still cheated on me. You'll have to pay back all the money that was spent. The lawsuit papers have been sent to the Yamen along with the divorce papers. You just wait to pay back the money. I looked at the two of them with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Song Xuanzhou, perhaps because he lost face, angrily rebuked. Li Mingju, how dare you? I am your husband. The husband leads the wife. Since ancient times, there has been no reason for a jealous woman to kick her husband out. Besides, he grinned, I have dirt on your II family's shady business. If you dare to kick me out, I'll dare to report your crimes to the emperor. How about it? I didn't want to threaten you, but you're being far too aggressive. Prefect PA is coming over for tea today. I advise you to think clearly before making a decision. As he spoke, the gatekeeper timely announced, Prefect PA has arrived. Which Prefect P? I furrowed my brows. Song Xuanzhou, thinking he had found my weakness, said smugly, who else could it be? The one most favored by His Majesty, Lingdu's P Zhao. Lord P. Scared now, aren't you? Hurry up and invite him in! Song Xuanzhou shouted angrily. The gatekeeper acknowledged and turned to walk out the door, and Pei Zhao, as if on cue, walked in right on time. Just in time for this good show. But he had just entered, and before he could even speak, Song Xuanzhou eagerly grabbed his hand. Prefect Pei, you must put in a good word for this humble one. Pei Zhao's gaze swept over the chaotic scene in the hall, and he looked at Song Xuanzhou with confusion. What is this? Song Xuanzhou struck while the iron was hot. To be honest, brother, Pei, don't laugh, but I had a bit of a relationship with this Miss Shen when I was away in my early years, and she bore me a child. My wife also knows about this and tacitly approved. I don't know what is wrong today. She suddenly brought this Miss Shen back, and without any explanation, she wants to snatch the child that she Shen worked so hard to give birth to, and even wants to give me some letter of divorce and drive me out of the house too. Normally, I shouldn't bother Brother PA with this family matter, but you tell me, in all of history, where is the logic for a wife to divorce her husband? I really can't win an argument against her, and all the servants in the house only listen to her. So I had no choice but to ask Brother PA to judge. I watched with a cold gaze as he told barefaced lies. Shen Qingqing seemed to want to say something, but was silenced by a look from him. Qingqing, tell us, isn't that right? Being watched by him, Shen Qingqing suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and without needing to be taught, began to spout nonsense. Yes, Song Lang and I had agreed to get married, but who knew a Miss Li would pop up out of nowhere, not only ruining my marriage prospects, but also trying to snatch my child and force me to be a concubine. I am the daughter of a good family, and though my birth is not high, I am still pure and innocent. I will not be a concubine for anyone. Just now I was forced to the point of wanting to kill myself on the spot right here in this mansion, if it weren't for the thought of my young child. As she spoke, she began to cry, ying ying ying. And as I listened to their incoherent statements, I got a real headache. The baby's crying was awful, and Shen Qingqing's crying was even more awful. It is so annoying. Seeing my foul expression, Song Xuanzhou really thought he had me by the throat, and complained even more ceaselessly to Pei Zhao. But while he was busy complaining, his eyes were on Pei Zhao's face. Otherwise, he would have discovered that the more he spoke, the uglier Pei Zhao's expression became. After a long while, Song Xuanzhou finally finished listing the crimes he had fabricated, such as forcing him to marry into her family, secretly bribing officials, as well as forcing good people into slavery, selling private salt, and so on. He drained the light tea on the small table in one gulp, and then spoke as if seeking agreement. Brother Pei, don't you think this woman is utterly detestable? Even so, I never thought about abandoning her, but she was heartless and ungrateful, and wanted to kick me out. Pei Zhao nodded along with his words. Truly despicable. Mingzhu, do you know that you were wrong? Following Pei Zhao's roar, Song Xuanzhou looked over at me smugly. How about it? This is the consequence of offending me. Now this entire Li family will fall into ruin because you've offended me. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Although he didn't speak, his expression was full of provocation. Even the smugness in their eyes was exactly the same as Shen Qingqing's. I suddenly understood why Shen Qingqing was like that. It turns out that birds of a feather flock together. I sighed. Yes, cousin. I was a poor judge of character. I know I was wrong. This kind of person should have been kicked out of the house long ago. Why are you only doing it today? I felt a bit guilty. It is because I hadn't found out before. You can't say I was possessed and just kept him at home like a pretty vase to look at. Pei Zhao seemed to be a mind reader. He glanced at me and pulled his hand out of Song Xuanzhou's grip. Back then, when the news that you wanted him to marry into the family reached Lingdu, I was against it from the start. A poor scholar of unknown origin, with no knowledge of his character or learning, no accomplishments, no family background. How could he possibly be worthy of you? It would have been one thing to just fool around with him for his looks, but you said it was perfect, that you could get the child and ditch the father Fei, and insisted on bringing him into the family. And look what happened. The child is in someone else's belly, and you've let yourself be bullied to this extent. When Pei Zhao got serious, he was very fierce. I didn't dare to object, and just nodded repeatedly. Yes, I just found out he is a scumbag, and was about to kick him out when you arrived. You too. Why didn't you write me a letter, your little sister, about your transfer to the capital? You're being so distant. You're not allowed to spread this joke around, I said with a mock complaint, trying to ease the awkward atmosphere. Pei Zhao scoffed lightly through his nose, full of disdain. As if I have the thick skin to go and lose face over this. Song Xuanzhou and Shen Qingqing were left a bit dizzy and confused by our back and forth. For a long time, Song Xuanzhou finally reacted, pulling out a forced smile. This, brother P. What does this mean? You and my wife are cousins. Why have I never heard anyone mention it before? He asked cautiously, but only received Pei Zhao's ridicule. What, didn't you say Li Mingju's methods are appalling? That she makes a huge profit from peddling private salt, and even periodically sends this profit into the hands of a certain official in Lingdu, just to grease the wheels. Don't you know who she sent it to? Why do you think I agreed to come have tea with you? Guess what? The things you know, does His Majesty know them or not? Take another guess. Why is the Lai family's business so big? And does that salt farm have an official seal on it? Our own family's salt farm. Giving dividends to our own family? What business is it of a son-in-law who married in like you? For the first few sentences, Pei Zhao seemed relatively gentle, but for the last sentence, his voice turned straight up cold, as if interrogating a prisoner in a jail cell, unconsciously carrying the weight of his official authority. Song Xuanzhou was questioned so hard he fell off his chair, landing on his butt on the floor. Seeing his comical appearance, I sneered inwardly, while my face remained impassive as I drank my tea. Pei Zhao is way scarier than me, and he brought this on himself, so he can just take it. Spouting nonsense like that and slandering someone's good name can get you thrown in jail. And you said Li Mingju wants to force you to be a concubine and snatch your child. If you have evidence, you can also go to the yamen to sue. If you don't have evidence for a baseless accusation, according to the law, you should be beaten with 20 big planks. Pei Zhao fully displayed his impartial side from when he was the capital's magistrate, scaring the two people in front of him, who were talking nonsense, into a daze. When Song Xuanzhou and I got married, I didn't know his family's background, and he didn't know my details, only thinking that I was just an ordinary merchant. But he never would have thought that the bureaucrat Pei Zhao he thought he had latched onto, Great Blue Sky Master he thought would uphold justice for him, was actually my cousin who I grew up with. I saw that both of their faces were pale with fright, and I finally spoke. Cousin, let me handle my own family matters. The house is a mess. After I've dealt with it, I'll invite you over as a guest another day, cousin. After sending Pei Zhao off, Song Xuanzhou still hadn't recovered from the shock. They were watched by the servants in my mansion, unable to move a single step. At this time, the child in Shen Qingqing's arms was also tired from crying, and fell into a deep sleep. She snuggled rather timidly in Song Xuanzhou's arms, and asked Chita, Lang, "This isn't what you told me before. You said you had a shrewish wife at home who would definitely not let me in. So we needed to make a scene. You said your wife loves you and cares about her reputation, so she would surely bow her head and welcome me into the family. But you didn't say you married into the family." She lowered her voice, her eyes darting around and glancing at the servants who were ordered to watch them. "So, what if I married into her family? That Li Mingju is already married to me. A woman after all. Isn't this massive fortune mine? From now on, you and I will have plenty of good days. When she comes back later, you first." The two of them schemed blatantly, thinking no one knew. Little did they know that the house servants my family left me all have excellent hearing. After sending Pei Zhao off and coming back, the maid whispered in my ear, telling me every single word of their secret plotting while I was away. Before the maid could finish whispering in my ear, Shen Qingqing was already eager to carry out Song Xuanzhou's plan. She shot up to her feet, and I watched with great interest. "Song Lang, I'm so disappointed in you. When we were romantic under the moon and flowers before, you never said you were a son-in-law who married into the family. Otherwise, I wouldn't have with you. Forget it, just pretend I was never here today. I'm leaving now." She stood up, and my men not only didn't stop her, but also consciously made a path for her. Her face stiffened, and her gaze fell on Song Xuanzhou. Song Xuanzhou, however, did not leave with her dashingly, as they had planned. Instead, he knelt right in front of me, placing his head on my lap. "My lady, my wife, I know I was wrong. We've been married for 2 years, and I've only made this one mistake. Just forgive me this time, okay?" His tone was gentle and affectionate, as if there was some profound affection between us. I raised my palm, as if to gently caress his cheek, but stopped it mid-air. "Now you even have a child with someone outside. So even if I were magnanimous enough to forgive you this time, but what happens when the child grows up? Will they come to our door and make a scene? You know, I'm good-tempered, but my older cousin isn't." Song Xuanzhou almost eagerly grabbed my hand to press it against his cheek. "Qingqing is an orphan, so anyway, just let her and the child keep each other company down below. No one will find out." Hearing this, Shen Qingqing's eyes, red from crying, suddenly widened, and her slender frame seemed to tremble slightly. Song Lang, that is not what you told me just now, you." I chuckled lightly. So it was just a delaying tactic to coax a woman. Just now he was coaxing Shen Qingqing, and now he is trying a different way to coax me. Song Xuanzhou knew better than anyone what he would become if he left this place. So there is no way he was using the playing hard to get tactic he told Shen Qing about. Song Xuanzhou, who was just coaxing Shen Qingqing, suddenly put on a stern face. "Qingqing, I know you love me, but doesn't loving someone mean giving them freedom, letting them become a better version of themselves? I'm not leaving. In this life, even if I have to be the one to wrong you. What I owe you, I will repay in the next life, even if I have to be a cow or a horse. But in this life, our fate has run its course. In my heart for all my life there is only you, my lady. Song Xuanzhou looked at me with his pair of peach blossom eyes, deep as the sea with affection, and said it so convincingly, if I weren't long past the age of being fooled, I'm afraid I'd still be seduced by his beauty, and be stalled by him a few times. It is just that, after those malicious words of his just now, I'm afraid he doesn't want to stay, but rather wants my life. I can do it with my own hands. This way, ma'am can finally be at ease, right? I was surprised. Doing it yourself? I'll do it myself. The child will be left for you to raise. With everyone here watching, I will be the sinner. From now on, you and I are on the same rope, and we will never be apart again. Saying that, he actually got up and really walked toward Shen Qingqing. Qingqing, I'm sorry. If you must blame someone, you can only blame your bad luck for meeting me. You can go in peace. I will take good care of our child. Shen Qingqing shook her head violently, as if she couldn't believe this scene. Her feet, in terror, didn't move an inch. Fei Songlang, you can't do this to me. Fei, we had a pact. To live and die together. If you kill me, our child will resent you for the rest of their life. Fei, madam. Fei watching as Song Xuanzhou closed in step by step. His outstretched hand was about to grab her by the neck. In her panic, she actually turned to me for help. Fei, stop. At my shout, the house guards swarmed forward and pulled the two of them apart. Even Song Xuanzhou let out a sigh of relief. I looked at them, was really getting fed up, and waved my hand, not wanting to see them anymore. Show young Master Song and Miss Shen out. Just looking at you makes my eyes hurt. Remember to bring young Master Song his letter of divorce. Don't let him shamelessly latch on to us again someday, claiming he is one of the Lai family. Song Xuanzhou's face immediately changed drastically. Madam Mingzhu, I've already shown my loyalty to this extent, and you still want to drive me away. Don't you really have any marital affection left for me at all? I rubbed my brow without even looking at him. Song Xuanzhou, do you really think you're so smart, or do you think I'm an idiot? Your acting is atrocious, and it is giving me a headache to watch. If you really want to bring your whole family along to sponge off me, at least show some sincerity and grovel a little. Maybe I'll keep you all in my residence to amuse me, on account of your decent looks. Staging a few plays you fancy to be deeply affectionate is frankly nauseating. If you're going to kill someone, get the hell out of the mansion to do it. It has nothing to do with me. Get lost. Having said that, I just closed my eyes and stopped looking at them. He said he wanted to kill someone in my residence, and if I agreed, I would be an accomplice. If I didn't agree, it would still be my problem. It had nothing to do with his determination. I suppose this was the second act they had conspired to put on for me. While pretending to be the one betrayed, he was ruthless enough to use his own wife and daughter's lives as bargaining chips. He seemed to really think he would win no matter what, but he never expected that when I said I was divorcing him, I wasn't trying to scare him, wasn't making him choose between me and Shen Qingqing, and wasn't joking with him either. I really didn't want him anymore. Song Xuanzhou seemed to want to plead with me to stay, but he was blocked by the household servants. They used clubs to drive the two of them out, and even Song Xuanzhou's tattered bundle was thrown at their feet. In front of the passers-by at the gate, my maidservant slapped the divorce letter on his face. Young Master Song, our young miss said that a fickle and two-faced man is no good. From now on, you and the young miss will go your separate ways and never meet again. And don't come looking for our young miss if you're in any trouble. The young miss said, if you come again, it will be to repay your debts. If you can't produce the money, then don't blame us servants for being merciless. The passers-by pointed and gossiped about the two of them. I'd heard before that this Miss Lee's husband was improper, but I never thought he'd be the type to marry into her family and still keep a woman on the side. Look, he even has a child. Serves him right for being kicked out. Everyone's muttering made Song Xuanzhou and Shen Qingqing, who had wanted to linger by the gate, too ashamed to show their faces. To save face, they could only flee in a panic. I had originally thought that after the two of them left, they would break up and scatter. I didn't expect that after hearing Song Xuanzhou's talk about killing his wife, Shen Qingqing could still follow him so devotedly. Song Xuanzhou and Shen Qingqing were not from the capital. Besides my home, Song Xuanzhou had no other residence in the capital, so he could only take Shen Qingqing to stay at an inn. I just didn't expect that the news of Song Xuanzhou being divorced by me would be passed around in an instant, spreading everywhere in just half a day. Song Xuanzhou, who had originally used my name to stay in a superior room, was kicked out by the innkeeper not long after. "You good-for-nothing who lives off his wife. You've been thrown out and you're still pretending to be some big shot. Sorry, the Lai family is kind of a co-owner of this inn. We don't dare to let you stay, for fear of offending Miss Ming's Ju." "Oh, isn't this young Master Song? Long time no see, a vacant room. For some reason we've had especially a lot of guests lately. Why don't you go look somewhere else? We're full, not accepting outside guests." For the entire afternoon, Song Xuanzhou ran into walls everywhere. The proprietors in the capital heard that Song Xuanzhou and I had a falling out, and were scrambling to draw a clear line with him. Surprisingly, not a single one of his former close friends paid him any mind. As they watched nightfall, left with no other choice, they fumbled their way into a small broker's office and casually rented a rundown courtyard to stay in. I heard it was Shen Qingqing who paid the rent. The people at the broker's office didn't see Song Xuanzhou, and that is the only reason they let them rent the courtyard. When the news reached me, I had just arrived at Pei Zhao's residence and was in the middle of a meal. Pei Zhao asked in a measured tone, "You did this?" I waved my hand. Even though it wasn't me, it didn't hurt to admit it. Merchants prioritize profit. The scene I had the maid make at the door was to corner Song Xuanzhou. Knowing that Song Xuanzhou and I don't get along, any merchant with business dealings with me would not help Song Xuanzhou at the risk of offending me. He thought he was so clever that he could deceive everyone and force me to submit. What is happening now can hardly be called giving him a hard time. If they had the backbone to start from scratch in the capital, or to move somewhere else and live a decent life, as long as they were out of my sight, it is not that I couldn't tolerate them. About half a month later, when I was going to the estate to check the accounts, my carriage was stopped just as I passed through the city gate. The common folk at the city gate found it interesting and gathered in a circle to watch the commotion. A woman, her face deathly pale, tears and snot streaming down, knelt before my carriage while holding a child. Who else could it be but Shen Qingqing? I lifted the curtain, and Shen Qingqing immediately burst into loud sobs. "Madam, it was me. It was me who was audacious enough to seduce Master Song. I beg you to be lenient and not make things difficult for us anymore. I'm willing to be a concubine. No, even if I'm not a concubine, as long as you're willing to give my son away to survive, I'm willing to leave." Her crying was so earnest. The moment my gaze fell on the swaddled baby, Song Xuanzhou, who had been hiding to the side, jumped out. He seemed a bit crazed, holding a debt collection notice from the government in his hand, as he rushed forward and yelled, Madam, I know I was wrong. Back then, I was possessed. I shouldn't have secretly kept a concubine, and I especially shouldn't have plotted with her to come to your door and force you. I'm begging you, let me come home." Hearing this, Shen Qingqing cried even harder. While crying, she also gently soothed the baby in her swaddling clothes. I frowned, feeling that something was off, and had someone go forward to check. It turned out Shen Qingqing's baby had developed a high fever. I ignored Song Xuanzhou, just watching the faint rising and falling of the wrapped swaddling clothes. If the child is sick, you should see a doctor. What is the use of coming to me? Shen Qingqing glanced at Song Xuanzhou, a little timidly, but perhaps due to maternal instinct, she finally spoke up under Song Xuanzhou's glare. Song Lang said that in the capital, anyone related to the word money will definitely not treat my Nianian. He won't let me go to the clinic, calculated the time you would leave the city, and forced me to apologize to you. I know I was wrong, terribly wrong, but an infant is innocent. My child is only 3 months old. I'm begging you, spare us. As long as my child can live, I won't follow Song Lang anymore." As she spoke, under Song Xuanzhou's ashen gaze, she kowtowed repeatedly, crying to the point of nearly fainting. The surroundings were also filled with murmurs and discussions. "It is not that I'm cruel, but that Song Xuanzhou is stupid." Song Xuanzhou wasn't annoyed at being scolded. He just raised his head and looked down arrogantly at everyone before him. "It is just that he has been gone from my house for half a month. But what he is wearing is still the same robe from the day he left. Now it is not only wrinkled, but the corners of the clothes are also dirty, which really can't be considered elegant." I tapped my temple and asked him, "Song Xuanzhou, on the day I kicked you out of the residence, I had someone send you a message. Do you still remember what I said?" His expression faltered, and before he could answer, I continued. "I said if you appeared before me again, I'd assume you were here to repay the money. When you married into my family, I gave you a betrothal gift of 30 taels. In these 2 years, besides daily food, clothing, and studies, you have spent a total of 1,000 taels from the accounts in my name for entertainment and keeping someone. I won't ask for the betrothal gift back now, nor for the cost of your food and clothing in my residence. A mere 1,000 taels. I assume you have it ready, then cut the crap and hand it over." Song Xuanzhou probably didn't expect me to be so direct. Tightening his grip on the debt collection note, his mouth moved a few times, and he spoke with difficulty. "Mingzhu, I'm not here to repay the money. I was impatient. Then let's go see the magistrate. I don't have time to waste on your nonsense." As I spoke, 2 or 3 of the family servants guarding my carriage had already pulled him out and were escorting him towards the city gate. Before I got too far away, I could still hear his shouting, "Mingzhu, Mingzhu, I really know I was wrong. Forgive me, just this once." "Okay, I just pretended I didn't hear." As for Shen Qingqing, she was obviously relieved after Song Xuanzhou left, and holding her child, she ran towards the clinic in the city. But when I returned 7 days later, I heard that her child, due to a prolonged high fever and lack of timely medical treatment, had already passed away by the time they reached the clinic. And when Song Xuanzhou got to the government office, because he was truly afraid of doing jail time, he promised to gather the silver within 7 days. After returning home, he sold Shen Qingqing, who had just lost her daughter, into a brothel for 20 taels of silver, and fled the city overnight. To evade the government soldiers, he headed specifically into the mountains. One night, he carelessly stepped into a hunting trap set by a hunter. When they found him, he was still alive, but the trap below had pierced his lower body. He was saved, but he was no longer able to function. He could barely walk upright and would have to crawl for the rest of his life. He seemed to have tried to come find me, but was driven away before he could get close. Out of options, he went to the front of the brothel to find Shen Qingqing, hoping that Shen Qingqing would take care of him for the rest of his life for old time's sake. But how could there be so many great saints in this world? Shen Qingqing knew he had been here, and wished she could swallow him whole and skin him alive. She immediately had the pimp in the brothel fetch a bucket of slop and send it to him. By the time he was discovered again, he had drowned in the slop. When the people from the yamen went to the brothel to arrest someone, I was looking through the family business's account books. So pitiful, and he totally deserved it. It was Shen Qingqing, and it was also Song Xuanzhou.